Welcome to Heal the World Show podcast. Permelia Parham with the Healing Institute. And this podcast is brought to you by the Healing Institute. And we are an online, worldwide hub of holistic practitioners. And we are out to heal the world. We have such amazing practitioners with all different holistic modalities. And we want people to know that there is hope for them. And there are ways for you to be well and stay well on your health journey. So I've been using holistic ways to be well for well over 20 years. And when we look at what's holistic, we're actually looking at what the root cause is, not just what the symptom is. And that, I believe, is very, very important. And I have been studying wellness. And so I've designed the Healing Institute because I'm really passionate about creating a proactive wellness society. We've been a reactive illness society for way too long. So it's time to shift that paradigm and become a proactive wellness society. So why is this important to me? Well, we did have a tragedy in our family a few years ago where my mom passed away at a young age, 61. And it was due to some complications that she had because of a medication that she'd been on for a very long time. And so not once did her doctor ever say that a side effect of being on this medication for a long time could be complications with her kidneys. And so she ended up passing away just before Christmas, December 15th. I was 5 months pregnant with my son. And it was not only just a tragedy that she died so young, but my children didn't get ever to meet their grandmother. So I don't want that happening to other people and other families. I definitely want us to look at how we can ask questions and be curious about our health. So, Heal the World show every week. I invite some guest co hosts. This month is the month of May, so we're celebrating women's health. And today I'm so excited to have these two wonderful women. Our topic today is about grief, and they have such expertise around this topic. So I'm going to welcome Krista Rizzo and Maria Balanik. Welcome, ladies. I'm so excited for you to be here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Krista. So excited to be here with you.
Yes, I even was able to get them to meet ahead of time. So that was good. So let's get into this subject. I've found over the years, a lot of people don't want to talk about grief, or they don't want to talk about the emotions that they're having as they're grieving. Have you, either of you, found that to be the case?
I certainly have. I don't want to speak for Krista. I mean, my son, who was 27 when he passed away, I think people after a while give you a couple of months, maybe a year or two, and then it's like, okay, why are you still stuck? Why are you not over it? Why aren't you done? Almost like grief has this end date.
Yeah, a timeline, which is so
Right?
not true. Mm-hmm.
And it's not. And I mean, it's going to be 15 years soon. And there doesn't go a day that I don't miss him,
Right.
miss his presence. So, in some actual facts, I still call myself a grieving mom, or I've changed to a bereaved mom.
Right.
Because that will never, ever change. And I think sometimes people equate grief with this acute sadness all the time.
I want to piggyback on that.
Yeah, you go through many different emotions, right? Right, Krista?
Yep. Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, in my experience, just being an educator in this now, after going through my own stuff with my own grief and loss, I think a lot of people don't recognize that grief comes in different pieces of our lives also. Mm-hmm. It's not just related to death, right? And so we have to kind of figure out how to talk about that in a more comfortable way. Losing a job, losing a relationship, losing your own personal health, not even necessarily a loved one, but giving each experience its own time to grieve. And like Maria said, there's no timeline, and there's no cookie cutter way to do it, right? Each experience deserves its own time and its own experience unto itself. And I think for a lot of people, they don't realize that, right? They think, oh, how come you're not done yet? And you're never going to be done. It's something that you kind of have to take with you and accompany and integrate into your life.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, we also had another tragedy in my family, in that there's a 7.5 year difference between my sister and me, because there was a son that was born in the middle, while he was stillborn. You know, my mother never got over that.
Right.
Never. I mean, she was in the hospital ready to deliver him, and they determined that he was stillborn. So, you know, there's no timeline to say, okay, well, now you can put that segment of your life just behind you and carry on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think grief can depending on the, you know, on the events that happen in your life, those are memories, and you know,
Yeah.
they're good memories. We should keep remembering someone who's passed away. So,
And I think I was going to say, Pramila, the same thing as you said when your mom had a stillborn. There are so many people, and it's society actually, that looks at miscarriages and stillborn as, oh yeah, it's okay. Just, you know, in a snap of a finger, you'll get over it. And no one seems to understand that, as you said, the memories stay with us. And it doesn't matter whether, and I'm talking about death of a person as grief, right? And as Krista had said, there is so many different types of grief. I mean, I always go, grief's a huge umbrella.
Yeah.
And there's different segments, like different raindrops that are coming on, like, or downpour. And society sort of says, don't talk about it. Like, if you don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And that, in my opinion, is what keeps people sometimes silent, is because when we're not allowed to acknowledge even our pain, right? Because everyone else is telling us to hush it up, you know, it's a secret. And yet you're like, but no, this is the experience that happened to me. I need, right? The person needs to be able to acknowledge, to be able to talk and to share. Because it's in sharing and in witnessing that we end up going on to our own healing journey. And again, everything's a journey. I mean, when we look at life, life is never, ever perfect, never really this linear line that everything good always happens to us. No,
absolutely.
It's up and down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We really do have to acknowledge people and their emotions. Of course, as you know, the work that I do with the body code, if you don't release those emotions, they're going to get stuck in your body and create dis-ease, which is going to create disease. So you really want to be able to talk it out, do whatever therapies that fit for you. I remember quite a few years ago, I was traveling down in the States, and I was coming back. I think we were in Arizona, and we just stopped at the side of the road because there was like this market that was going on. And so I went in to talk to a woman because she had this beautiful jewelry, and I love jewelry. And she was quite sad. And I said, "Oh, you know, you seem to be sad today." And she said, "Yes, it's the anniversary of my grandson, who was killed in a car accident the year before." And she said, "You know, I know I have to get over it." And I looked at her and I took her hands and I went, "No, you don't."
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad, Krista, that you raised the idea of grief, the different kinds of grief there is, because we often just think of grief around someone passing. But there's the grief of losing a job. There's the grief of your children are leaving home. Maybe not so much grief, but
Right.
it's a new phase in your life, right?
Yeah.
So there's different segments of our life where we do have grief. If there's a breakup of a marriage, whether or not you want that, or you might want that, but it's
Yeah.
still grieving the loss of something.
Right. And, that's true. And I also think that, along the lines with all of these experiences is we are also personally, when we're going through a grief situation, are grieving a life that we have lost, or that we thought we were going to have, right?
Mhm.
It's like when you lose a loved one, it's interesting that you said that your mother passed away from complications from a medication that affected her kidney. My dad had the same thing. And he was 71 when he passed, but we didn't know better to ask the questions about how these medications affect your other organs, right? It was helping his heart, but it was hurting his kidneys. And I think that, after he passed, my mom said, this is not how it was supposed to be. My life wasn't supposed to look like this. And she was grieving the loss of her husband and the loss of the life that they had, but also grieving the loss of the life that she expected.
Yes.
Right. So we kind of have to give ourselves grace in our grieving process, because it's vast, and it doesn't last a year. It doesn't last 6 months. I mean, sometimes it's easier to get over. I hate saying get over, because we don't ever get over it, but move through things than others, right? Just depending on the situation. But I think that when you kind of come to that realization that this is something that I have to adjust to and lean into, it kind of gives you a different perspective, and it allows you that growth that you
Yes.
need to move through that grief.
And the
somebody's got a
grace.
question that I really
The
am
grace to do
liking
that.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have Marie Piplovic, who's popped on to say hello, and Marie is one of our practitioners on the website, and she does some wonderful work working with women who are in midlife that are burned out, or have been in a position or a job that is no longer fulfilling them. She's also an amazing conscious breathing facilitator. So let's, Marie, thank you for popping on. She says loss equals grief, most definitely. There are some words that help someone who is grieving from a death and words that don't help. Can you share some of those do say and don't say? Oh, great question, Marie. Maria, why don't you go first?
Okay. That is definitely a great question. And I always tell people that when you're going to ask someone how they're doing, right? When we just leave it blank, oh, how you doing? It's just such an open-ended question, which actually frightens the griever, right? Because it's almost like, I mean, the response that you're going to get is, what the frick do you think, whatever experience happened, especially if it's a death of someone, it's like so-and-so passed away. Like, how do you think I'm doing? I always say, always ask, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling today? Right? Always, whatever question you're asking, ask right now or add today. And one of the things too, I think, no griever, doesn't matter what they're going through or experiencing, really want someone to say, oh, I understand. I totally get what you're going through. Well, that is like no one's walking in each other's shoes. I mean, there's 3 wonderful women here. And yet I do not have Permilla's experience.
Right.
I don't have Krista's experience. And for me to go, oh, yes, I know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Right.
No, it makes you feel very inauthentic. And it kind of negates your emotions and your feelings, because that person doesn't know. Maybe they think they know, but they don't really know, because they're not you. So yeah, I know there was many years after, just because of the experience of my mother and father losing this child. I would see people who I did a lot of retail, worked in a lot of retail back then, and I'd see people, women who had their, were pregnant, and then I'd see them after when they didn't have their tummy. I could not ask them. I just couldn't ask them. I had one customer say to me, "Are you not going to ask me?" And I'm like, "Okay, yes, I will." But it was like I needed her permission, and
Yeah.
and then I was thinking about, oh my gosh, this is so many years later, and it's still affecting how I look at life. And I'm just the daughter, right? I'm, well, not just the daughter, but it does. As you're right. I think
Yeah.
Krista, you said it affects the whole family. It's not
Sure.
just
But
the
I think that's, I'm sorry to talk over you, but I think just that awareness
Mhm.
that you gained from that experience allowed you to be a little bit more cautious and empathetic,
Mhm.
right? Because we learn through our experiences. And when something challenging or bad or sad happens to us, even the happy stuff, right? We have learned something. And if it's an experience that we say, oh, well, that wouldn't feel good to me if somebody asked me that question, or that wouldn't, I wouldn't want somebody to follow up that way because that's my experience. You're now taking that and you're using it as a tool on other people, right? You don't want to ask somebody because there's a little bit of a fear there for them to come back and say, oh, well, unfortunately, I didn't
Yeah.
make it through the pregnancy or whatever, which, statistically is not what's going to happen, but you never know. And because it happened to somebody that you don't want to be that person. It's like, never assume there's a woman is pregnant, right? I mean, how many times have
Exactly.
you heard somebody say, oh,
Oh,
congratulations, or whatever, and someone's like, for what, right? So we can't make assumptions for people. We
absolutely.
can only speak to our experience and then not project it, but use it in a way that can potentially comfort others.
Yes, and that's, I think, mainly what we want to do, right? We want to offer that comfort, so they know that they're being heard, they're being
Yep.
seen. Absolutely. Yes. Because I know my mom also experienced a lot of anxiety of just, we lived in a city, but it wasn't a big city. And so she knew a lot of people, and just going out
Mm.
to go shopping, for people then to say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Like, then she has to tell the story all over again. So that I think also that experience lingered, with us
Of course.
as well. Awesome. Marie's got another great question.
She's
Have
got
you
all the good
noticed?
ones today.
Yeah. Have you noticed that people can be really uncomfortable with someone who's grieving, and their words can reflect their own discomfort
Yep.
when words maybe are not even needed, just presence and open ears?
Yeah. Grief is an uncomfortable topic for everybody. The griever, the supporter, the observer, right? None of us likes discomfort, right? And to be able to kind of lean into that, Marie, is a way for us to feel supported. So yes, I have definitely noticed that, and I think that Maria said it before. I teach acknowledge, validate, and act. That's my acronym for what I do. And so it's acknowledging the situation has happened. So if you're with somebody who has been through something, just acknowledging that has happened. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Whatever, right? And then validating their feelings, because when you get your feelings validated, and you're not doing it for yourself, by somebody else, it makes you feel heard, right?
Yes.
It makes you feel seen,
Yeah.
and then act on it. So it's like, I'm sorry that this happened to you. I know it must be really challenging or really sad for you. I'm here for you if you need anything, or lean on me. I'm here to listen, right? Or just, can I give you a hug, right? I mean, a lot of people just want to be. They just want to feel the presence of another human being. Can I give you a hug? Hugs work wonders for people, right? And I think that when you do those things and you become somebody who is a support person for other people, they come to rely on you for that, right? It's like, oh, I can call Maria because she's going to 9 times out of 10 have the right words, or not, or she's just going to sit there and say, tell me about it, right? Because a lot of times we just want to talk about it, and other people
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable enough to say, why don't you tell me about your mother or your son or whomever, right? But we do want to talk about them because we want
Yeah.
to keep their memory alive and keep their legacy alive. So I love that question. And yes, it's words, it's presence, it's all of the things.
Yeah. Perfect. Beautiful. Um, so any other topic or any other processes that you can offer for people, or let me rephrase that. How, with clients that you're working with, uh, is there, can we, often our audience likes to know when, with sort of the results of working with other, when we work with our clients. So, Krista, do you have any examples that you can give us? One or two examples of people you've been working with, and
Oh, sure.
and the results from working
Yeah.
with you?
I think there's a comfortability that comes with trust, right? And
Mhm.
being able to open up to somebody else and have these uncomfortable conversations and share these uncomfortable feelings. That's number one. And I think that when you have the ability to have those conversations and create that safe space, people feel better and ready to open up and have those conversations. But like I said before, I think acknowledging, validating, and acting. And I think for my clients, especially, coming up with ways that make them feel comfortable to move through
Mhm.
their process, right? Not everybody wants to journal. Not everybody wants to go out for a walk in the woods, right? It's like when you're having the self-care conversation, because that's what this is, right? When you're going through a grieving
Mhm.
process, you're trying to figure out what and I don't like new normal either is, but what your routine is going to be, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what I try to do with my clients, because each one of them is different and each experience is different. And what do you like to do? And how do you want to keep this legacy of this person or this experience alive? Sometimes it's an experience and they're like, I just want to put it to bed. And that's fine, right? It's a relationship, it's loss of a job, it's all of those things, which tend to be easier, quote unquote, than the loss of a loved one,
Right.
right? So that is a different hurdle. But I think that, for a lot of people, it's just, or in my experience, it is finding their comfortability moving forward. And for other people, it's, you know, taking their time, right? I talk about, when I talk to my clients, it's like, this is, in your own time, on your own pace, at your own leisure, right? Like there's no timeline for this. And this can take you, as long as you need it to take. And I think when people really recognize that and understand it, they feel relief.
Yes.
There's a relief that comes with that, because now they're not anxious about having to accomplish something that can potentially never be accomplished.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Beautiful. Maria, do you have any testimonials or examples that you can give us of clients that you've
Mhm.
worked with?
Well, somewhere's in the same sort of line as Krista, because grief is grief, and yet because I deal with the death of a loved one, there is also I have about releasing the could have, would have, should haves, in
Mm-hmm.
regards that when it's our loved one, we feel that we had control, or we think that we did,
Mm-hmm.
and we sometimes feel that we could have done something different that would have changed the outcome.
Right.
And so that is part of what I do in regards to because I have a program that's called the 5 Pillars of Care, and I use care as the acronym in regards of you need to give yourself compassion, because a lot of times in grief, we happen to be our own worst critic.
Mm-hmm.
And we pile and pile things on us, again, with the regrets and the guilt that, as human nature, we always feel that we've done something,
We've
right?
done
And
something wrong. Something that
yeah,
happened.
most
It's our fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
no matter, and sometimes, especially when it's our loved one, we do. Could we have said something different? Could we have done right? It's all of these things replay. So for me, it's about having people move forward to where they have a sense of peace, a peace of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and where, again, they're comfortable, they're in a safe space where vulnerability is courage.
Mhm.
And a lot of
Absolutely.
times we don't, because we feel that when we're stoic and silent, we're so have strength, right? How many times have we heard people say, "You're so strong. Oh, you're handling it so well." Well, I hate to pop this bubble, but I always go, grievers have no choice. I mean, it's not a situation anyone would have chosen.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
so moving forward is everyone is doing the best that they can. And so I always tell my clients is really you have to listen
Yep.
to the whispers of your heart because
And
it's a
someone observing that might think it's kind of like the duck in the pond, right? It looks
yeah,
like you are strong and dealing with it, but you know,
Right, your little
your
legs.
emotions are just
yeah.
like paddling like crazy to try just to keep up with life. So
Mhm.
those
And
are
that's one of the reasons why I dislike using the word going through something. And I know
mhm.
Krista, and again, it just
Yeah,
depends
yeah,
on where someone is in their grief journey. Because a lot of times we go, "Oh, you're going to get through it." And I go, "Well, you know what? When you're dealing with the loss of a loved one, we're not going through this tunnel, right? Like we haven't started our
yeah.
grief journey and all of a sudden it's a tunnel that we end and all of a sudden we're out of it and kind of like guess what? Wow, I'm over it now. And I think that, and I loved how you said, because I use the same words, moving forward. Because
Yeah.
in life, we're constantly moving forward. And again, a forward could be at, I always go, I use a turtle at, as a picture so that way people understand. You can go at your own pace.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
isn't a race to get
Yeah.
anywhere.
No.
Because life is life and everyone listens to their own whispers of their heart, their intuition, because you know exactly what's right for you,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because I think that's the thing that we're all saying is that there is no right or wrong to grief. It's
No.
your way.
Yes.
Yeah, and definitely to sort of just be in that calm space so that whatever could be coming up for you to help you with the grieving process, be available and aware for that rather than running around doing and keeping yourself so busy. I know that's often the advice that you get. Oh, well, just be busy,
Right.
get busy, and then you won't have these memories or you won't have these emotions. Well, that doesn't work either. So if you get to that point where you can just have that calmness so that you are tapping into your own intuition and living with how it's working for you, because you're the one that's important. All the rest of the people are not important. I mean, obviously if you have family and you have children and they're going through the same grief process with losing a loved one as you are, then of course you want to be there for them. But really basically, the the suggestions that you've given today, both of you, are just invaluable. And I wanted to, we will be going back through the chat, and anybody, I do a replay later in the afternoon. So sometime later tonight or tomorrow, you might want to check the chat again.
Okay.
We might have some more comments.
There's
And
another
we want,
question right now. I think Kamari has put in
she
another
put in,
question. Yeah, she has great
oh,
questions.
Yeah.
he does have great questions. Okay, good. So I notice that moments of grief can pop up anytime. It can be triggered from another's loss or an experience, or even something that comes into visibility that reminds you of the loss, even years later.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, anniversaries, or if you're, someplace where I oftentimes find myself reminiscing about my parents in the grocery store because they both love to cook. And that's something I also love to do. So it's like, I'll be in the grocery store and I'll see Malamars and it's like, oh, those were my dad's favorite and they're only seasonal. So it must be, Malamar time. And I'll just very quickly think of him and that go on through it with my day. Right. But yes, I think that there are lots of times when you can be reminded of your loved ones. And I often like to say, that's just a way of staying connected to them.
Absolutely. And celebrating them
Yeah.
on, birthdays and anniversaries and those times of the
Yeah.
years. I have to share this with you. So after my mom passed away at Christmas, it was the 15th of December. And I said to somebody one day, Mom always loved Christmas. That was one of her favorite times of the year. And we'd even had decided on a celebration that year, that I was going to do Christmas. And because she was going to have this one kidney removed, but she was going to wait till January to do it. So I said about how much my mom loved Christmas. And then someone gently reminded me that that would be the reason maybe that she chose to transition at Christmas
Oh,
time. And, that made just the biggest difference
yeah.
in looking at the fact that she had died at Christmas.
Right.
I was like, oh yes, okay.
Yeah.
that
It changes
makes
your
perfect
perspective.
sense.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And
I
so
like that.
and to celebrate that, my sister and I, the first Sunday in December, we have a ladies' Christmas tea.
That's
So,
nice.
we inherited some china and
Yeah.
some silver tea service. And so we bring all of that out and we invite our friends to come and we ask them to share a story about their mom or some woman who was significant in their life. And we've been doing that for years now. And it really does make a difference because it really helps us at Christmas to celebrate our mother.
That's
So,
a beautiful thing.
That is beautiful.
well, I think we have come to the end of our 30 minutes. So that is wonderful. I'm just going to show, this is a way, so both Krista and Maria have offered some information that we will put in the chat as well. And so Maria has a 5 keys to self-compassion with a link. And Krista's got, I love this, you can't tell me how to feel.com. Yeah. So, and you can get in touch with both of them. We'll put their contact information in the chat. So thank you so much. And thank you, Marie Piplovic, for being with us and hanging in there during today's show, because that was really wonderful and all her great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have a big ask, the Healing Institute. We are out to heal the world, and we want you who've been listening to this podcast today to please let people know that there is hope. And so we have, as I mentioned earlier, these amazing, wonderful, holistic practitioners that are available for you on any, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual concerns that you have. Our practitioners can help you, and they do get to the root cause. They're not just looking at symptoms. So our vision is to create a community of health practitioners customizing their unique treatments for you. So it's not a one size fits all. And today you got to meet 2 more amazing people, 2 more amazing women who are helping to heal the world, Krista Rizzo and Maria Balanek. Thank you so much for being part of Heal the World Show podcast.
Thank you, Pramila.